Whoever want to be stupid and come crash out on me, that's on them. You feel me? They just better succeed because they got family and they got people that they care about if I can't get them. I haven't ran to one person that said to my face, I pray that nobody don't provoke me. People need to stop playing with me like I'm somebody to play with. I keep telling them, like, I don't been in them situations where I had to take it there, and I would take it there. And I would not think twice about it. I would go home and sleep peaceful as hell like ain't nothing happened. People like, how the hell you gonna be mad at Thug and Lucci for coming together, but you that can't together with Charles White and he talk about your child? Well, Charles White ain't no threat. Ain't no blood been shed. Thug and Lucci doing what they did made me feel like it's okay to shake somebody's hand for Cleveland Avenue and Summer here.
So you can stop the blood from being shed.
Yeah, but it's a lot of parents, it's a lot of moms out here hurting my nigga. Like, don't die on Cleveland Avenue side. They wasn't really promoting the violence. They really went with the beef. I got an interview saying if Thug and Lucci squash the beef, that'd be big for the city. But my thing be is like, hey bro, if you gonna be for real about this right here, you gotta be for real out around boy. Forgive Gunna. If y'all feel like Gunna did wrong, that mean Thug did wrong.
They say the young Thug put a green light on Nut. This is what the DA says.
That's what they gonna say.
A car got rented. Did you ask Thug to rent this car?
I ain't gonna speak on it.
A drive-by happens at a barber shop, and Big Nut gets. Nut's brother was in the vicinity when it happened, and as Nut was down, he told his brother, Thug had me. And according to police, young Thug went and met up, they say you and some other people at a McDonald's, and they talked about the whole situation of what just happened.
You see how the trial just went. We don't know what happened. They came and proved that the car that they said was the car that did it.
I know pretty soon Lucci's coming home. Does that bother you that people keep putting you in these headlines and attaching you to them?
Yeah, because everybody who know me. Forget what those who don't know me got to say because it's like, it is what it is. Lucci got a chance to come home and make his life better. One thing I think about Lucci, because I think about him, I don't got nothing against him. He a good artist. I want to see him win. No matter what differences we may have. I just pray he come out with his head on right because I'm pretty sure the only ones who holding him down are the ones who thinking that they can benefit from him when he come home. I hope he's smart enough to realize that it's only him in that cell. Ain't none of these other people in that cell with him. And you seen what you were facing. So you know, hey, you love your mama and your kids and your family. You gotta make better decisions for them. Leave the gang stuff behind because this is our downfall. Why y'all ain't do this in the beginning? Why did we have to go through so much? I said squash the beef. I ain't say hang out for y'all feel like y'all gonna put the money first and y'all gonna come together. Y'all could have been squashed the beef. Bro, you know how many people sitting in jail for the rest of their life behind this? I didn't want to go to war with people. I didn't want to have people as enemies because we was friends. Lucci is not an enemy to me. Y'all could have easily let it go and went y'all separate ways. Y'all ain't got to work together. That's why I feel some type of way. It's fake. Because me and Thug had conversation with, bro, this shit ain't about nothing. I told this nigga this shit about nothing. A whole lot of families hurt. A whole lot of young men don't lost their life. And y'all club party? Talking about because y'all went to trial and everybody flipped on y'all? I said squash the beef. I ain't say hang out.
For almost a decade, Atlanta felt like it was split down the middle. 2 camps, 2 crews, 2 superstar rappers tied to names that carried real weight in the streets. Young Thug on one side, YFN Lucci on the other. This wasn't just diss tracks and Instagram captions. People got locked up. People lost their lives. Families were pulled into something they never signed up for. The tension ran so deep that when the state hit both sides with massive RICO indictments, it felt like the final chapter. Courtrooms replaced clubs, lawyers replaced entourages. Everyone thought the war had reached its breaking point. And then, something happened that nobody saw coming. One night, one club, one viral video, Thug and Lucci, standing next to each other, smiling, talking, no security pushing them apart, no tension in the air, just what looked like peace. But the internet exploded. Some called it growth. Some called it maturity. Some said Atlanta finally healed. But not everybody was clapping. Because while the bosses were hugging it out, there were people still sitting in cells, people still grieving, people who allegedly put in work during that war and can't just erase what happened. And one of those voices decided to speak up, Lil Woody. When he opened his mouth, he didn't celebrate peace. He questioned it. And what he said next turned this reunion from a feel-good moment into something much deeper and way more complicated. At first, it didn't look like a war. It looked like competition. Atlanta has always been competitive. New artists pop up every year. Crews form, labels move, alliances shift. In the early 2000s, 2 names were rising fast. Young Thug and YFN Lucci both had street credibility. both had loyal followings, both had crews behind them. Thug was building the brand of YSL. Lucci was closely tied to YFN. On the surface, it was just two movements trying to dominate the same city. But in Atlanta, rap culture and street culture don't always live in separate worlds. Lines blurred, alleged disputes started surfacing in lyrics, subliminal messages turned into direct shots. Social media amplified everything, and once fans pick sides, things escalate fast. Every post becomes evidence. Every song becomes a statement. Then rumors began circulating about real-life incidents tied to the tension. Alleged shootings, arrests, associates facing charges. Whether every rumor was true or not, almost didn't matter. Perception fueled the fire, and that's when it stopped being entertainment. By the mid-2000s, but people inside Atlanta were saying this wasn't just industry rivalry anymore. The hostility had moved beyond music. People connected to both sides were getting caught up in serious legal trouble. The environment felt heavier. The city started whispering that this feud was becoming one of the most dangerous in Atlanta's rap history. And just when it seemed like things couldn't escalate further, the state stepped in with something much bigger than diss tracks, a RICO indictment. And once that happened, the entire game changed overnight. Everything changed in 2022, not because of a diss track, not because of a viral moment, because of a 56-count indictment. Georgia prosecutors used the state's RICO statute, the same type of law designed to dismantle organized crime, and aimed it directly at YSL. And the indictment alleged that YSL wasn't just a record label. It was described by the state as a criminal street gang, at the center of it, Young Thug. He was arrested and denied bond. Prosecutors alleged racketeering conspiracy, among other serious charges. If convicted on the most severe counts, he was facing decades, potentially life. Around the same time, YFN Lucci was already dealing with his own RICO-related case tied to YFN. His legal battle had begun earlier, involving allegations connected to a fatal shooting. He eventually entered a negotiated plea agreement in 2024, avoiding a potential life sentence. But Thug's case became historic. The YSL RICO turned into one of the longest criminal trials in Georgia history. Jury selection alone stretched for months. Multiple defendants took plea deals. Witnesses testified. Text messages, lyrics, and social media posts were introduced as evidence. The courtroom became the new battleground. For years, people argued online about who was real and who wasn't. Now, everything was under oath, every move dissected, every association questioned. And something unexpected happened during this long legal war. Time passed, perspective shifted. When you're facing life behind bars, the idea of beef starts to feel different. Because suddenly, it's not about pride, it's about freedom. And when both sides began securing deals and stepping back into the world, nobody expected what they would do next. The city didn't get a press release. It got a video, one blurry club clip, flashing lights, music blasting, and standing there side by side were Young Thug and YFN Lucci, not arguing, not ignoring each other, and not surrounded by tension. They looked relaxed. For nearly a decade, their names had been tied to one of Atlanta's most talked-about rivalries. Fans picked sides, streets picked sides, lyrics fueled speculation. And now, after prison time, indictments, and years of legal chaos, they were in the same building like none of it ever happened. Social media went wild. Some people called it legendary growth. Two men who faced serious time, who saw friends flip, who watched the system come down hard, deciding peace was more important than pride. Supporters said this is what maturity looks like. This is what happens when reality hits. Atlanta wins. The culture wins. Everybody wins. But not everyone was celebrating, because peace looks different depending on where you stand. If you're a fan watching from Instagram, it's inspiring. If you're someone who lost friends, who sat in a cell, who allegedly put in work during that war, it can feel different. That's where the tension quietly shifted. Because while Thug and Lucci were smiling in public, there were voices behind the scenes asking one uncomfortable question: why now? Why after the arrests? Why after the trials? Why after people already paid the price? And that's when one former insider decided he wasn't going to stay quiet. Lil Woody stepped forward. And when he spoke, he didn't sugarcoat a single word. He wasn't a rapper. He wasn't a blogger. He wasn't chasing clout. Lil Woody had already been in the spotlight for a different reason. During the massive Georgia RICO case tied to YSL, Woody became one of the most talked about witnesses. once described as close to the movement, and that he ended up cooperating with prosecutors and testifying in court. That alone changed how the streets saw him. To some, he crossed a line. To others, he did what he had to do. But regardless of opinion, one thing was clear. Woody knew what went on behind the scenes. He wasn't just watching from Instagram, he had lived through the tension, the alliances, the fallout. So when footage of Young Thug and YFN Lucci partying together surfaced, people waited to see how insiders would react. Woody didn't stay quiet. On DJ Vlad's platform, he spoke openly. And from the first question, you could hear something in his voice. Not just anger, but frustration. Not just bitterness, but confusion. He didn't attack either rapper personally. In fact, he said he had love for both. But what he questioned was the timing. Why make peace now? Why not before people got locked up? Before families were hurt? Before the courts stepped in? To Woody, the reunion felt less like healing and more like convenience. And that's when the conversation shifted from growth to something much deeper. Because when someone who was allegedly in the trenches says the peace feels fake, people start listening. The moment that interview dropped, the tone changed. Lil Woody didn't scream. He didn't threaten anyone. But what he said carried weight. He looked straight at the situation and asked a simple question. Why now? Why after the arrests? Why after people lost years of their lives? Why after families were torn apart? He made it clear he wasn't mad about peace itself. He said peace is good for everybody. The city needs it. The culture needs it. But his issue was timing. According to him, there were conversations in the past about ending the feud. He claimed he personally told Young Thug that the conflict wasn't worth it. He suggested the other side may have been open to talks earlier. If that's true, then the obvious question hits harder. Could this have been stopped before it escalated? Woody spoke about people still sitting in prison tied to that era. He mentioned broken families. He referenced how many young men lost opportunities because of loyalty to something bigger than themselves. And now, watching Thug and YFN Lucci in the club together felt different to him. He described it as selfish. Not because peace is wrong, but because it came after so much damage. He said something else that stuck with a lot of viewers. He didn't claim Lucci was his enemy. He didn't say he hated Thug. In fact, Auntie spoke with a strange mix of loyalty and disappointment. That internal conflict is what made it powerful. It wasn't just anger. It sounded like someone wrestling with betrayal. And then the conversation took another turn. Because once you bring up the past, certain moments resurface, including one incident involving Lucci's mother that still sparks debate today. Lil Woody didn't just criticize the reunion. He claimed there were private discussions years ago about ending the tension before things spiraled out of control. According to him, he personally told Young Thug that the feud wasn't about nothing. He suggested he was willing to go speak to the other side himself, not to escalate, to calm it down. That's a bold claim, because if those conversations really happened, it changes the timeline. It suggests there may have been opportunities for peace before indictments, before RICO charges, before the city felt divided. Woody also implied that people connected to YFN Lucci weren't necessarily against sitting down either. He painted a picture of a city that, at its core, is built on making money. Not constant war. But instead of cooling off, things intensified. And this is where the emotional layer comes in. When people believe a conflict could have been prevented, the aftermath hits harder. It's one thing to say, we had no choice. It's another we could have stopped this. Woody's frustration wasn't just about seeing two rappers in a club together. It was about feeling like the war may have been avoidable. If the leaders had chosen differently back then, would people still be locked up today? Would families still be grieving? Those are uncomfortable questions, and they don't have easy answers. But once Woody raised them publicly, the narrative shifted. Now it wasn't just about growth. It was about missed chances. And just when that conversation felt heavy enough, another past incident resurfaced. One involving gunfire at a family home that people still argue about to this day. There's one moment from that era that people still bring up whenever this feud is discussed, an alleged shooting at a family home. During the height of the tension, YFN Lucci has publicly stated that his mother's house was shot at while he was on a promo tour. He said he got the call right before going on stage. Multiple shots reportedly fired. Thankfully, no one was hit. But think about that moment. You're about to perform, the crowd is waiting, and your phone rings with news that bullets just hit your mother's home. That kind of incident doesn't fade easily. What made it even more controversial was a lyric from Young Thug that some fans interpreted as referencing the situation. The line suggested someone shot at an opponent's mother. Thug never directly named Lucci in the lyric. The internet connected dots on its own. And in street politics, perception can be more powerful than proof. Lil Woody addressed this carefully. He pointed out that no one explicitly named names in the song. He also suggested that from his understanding, Thug himself wasn't physically involved in any shooting. But he acknowledged how the public took it. That's the tricky part. Even if something isn't directly stated, people build narratives. And once a narrative sticks, it becomes reality in the culture. Oh, so when fans saw Thug and Lucci together in a club after an alleged incident involving a mother's home, it felt surreal. Some saw forgiveness, others saw contradiction. Because family is sacred in street culture. And anything involving a parent carries long memory. This wasn't just about lyrics anymore, it was about history that can't be undone. And once you reopen old wounds like that, the question becomes bigger than peace. It becomes about loyalty and who feels left behind when leaders decide to move on. When wars start, it's usually the leaders who declare them, but it's the soldiers who bleed for them. Lil Woody's frustration taps into that exact tension. In his view, when Young Thug and YFN Lucci stand together smiling, it feels like the generals shook hands after the battlefield already took its toll. Because while two major names can move forward, there are others who can't. Some are still locked up. Some can't undo what they were accused of doing. Some live with reputations that won't disappear just because the bosses decided to grow. That's the emotional divide. From the outside, peace looks clean, mature, smart, especially when both men have faced serious legal pressure and understand how close they came to losing everything. Choosing unity after that feels powerful, but from inside the trenches, peace can feel complicated. If you rode for a movement, if you risked your freedom, if you built your identity around loyalty, and then the conflict ends with a handshake, where does that leave you? Woody isn't saying violence should continue. He's saying history doesn't vanish overnight. Trauma doesn't evaporate because a video goes viral. And this is where street culture collides with growth. Can leaders evolve without alienating the people who followed them? Can peace be celebrated while acknowledging the cost that came before it? Because if that balance isn't handled carefully, frustration doesn't disappear, it just shifts. And sometimes, when frustration shifts publicly, it creates tension that nobody planned for. After Lil Woody's interview started circulating, people waited. Would Young Thug respond? Would YFN Lucci address it? So far, both have stayed quiet. And in street culture, silence can mean different things depending on who's watching. Some see maturity. They believe both men understand what's at stake. After facing RICO charges and serious time, the last thing either of them needs is public back and forth, especially while dealing with probation terms and legal restrictions. One wrong move, one heated exchange taken the wrong way, and freedom could disappear again. So staying silent could simply mean they're protecting their peace. But others read it differently. When someone publicly questions the authenticity of a peace agreement and the leaders don't respond, some interpret that as dismissive. Like the concerns of those who were in the trenches don't matter anymore. That's where things get delicate. Because public criticism inside a movement can create cracks. Even if violence never returns, internal division can linger. Social media has already split into sides, some calling Woody bitter, others saying he's the only one speaking honestly. And here's what makes this moment risky. Narratives shape reality. If enough people believe the peace is fake, tension can resurface without anyone directly calling for it. Rumors spread fast. Clips get taken out of context, old stories resurface, and in a city like Atlanta, where pride and reputation matter, perception can carry weight. The real question now isn't whether Thug and Lucci can coexist. It's whether everyone connected to that history is ready to move on too. Because if even one piece of the past refuses to settle, here's something most fans don't think about: conflict sells. Diss tracks stream higher. Interviews get more clicks, social media debates go viral. In hip-hop history, some of the biggest moments came from tension between artists. Labels don't always start beef, but they definitely know how to profit from it. Now flip that. Peace can sell too. Or a decade-long rivalry ending in a single club video? That's headlines. That's blogs. That's engagement. That's narrative. So when Young Thug and YFN Lucci appear together after years of chaos, some people naturally ask, is this growth or strategy? To be clear, there's no proof this reunion was business-driven. It could genuinely be two men realizing prison and near-life sentences aren't worth ego. But in a culture where branding matters, people are always going to question timing. Because here's the reality. During the height of the feud, both sides were building momentum. Street reputation boosted authenticity. Authenticity boosted music. And controversy kept names trending. Then the indictments came, legal fees stacked up, careers paused, freedom became uncertain. Now imagine coming home after facing decades. Like, the smartest move isn't doubling down on war. It's stabilizing your career, protecting your probation, and rebuilding your image. Peace becomes powerful. But for people like Lil Woody, that shift can feel transactional. Like the battlefield mattered until the courtroom hit. Like unity arrived only when survival required it. That perception, fair or not, is what fuels skepticism. Because when war ends right after prison, some will always wonder if it ended from enlightenment or necessity. And that question sits quietly underneath everything. Ending a war is harder than starting one. For Young Thug and YFN Lucci, choosing peace might genuinely be growth. Prison changes people. Courtrooms change perspective. Facing the possibility of losing decades of your life forces you to rethink pride. But street conflicts aren't just between two individuals. They ripple outward. Associates build identities around loyalty, families carry grief, some people are still incarcerated, some can't undo what they were accused of during that era. So when leaders reconcile, the past doesn't automatically disappear for everyone else. That's why this moment feels bigger than one club appearance. It raises a deeper question. What does real accountability look like after years of tension? Is it enough to stop fighting, or does healing require acknowledging the damage done along the way? Lil Woody's frustration reflects that gap. He isn't arguing that violence should continue. He's questioning whether peace feels complete when others already paid permanent costs. And here's the bigger picture. Hip-hop has seen legendary rivalries end before. Sometimes they fade naturally. Sometimes they end because reality forces them to. The difference between temporary calm and true resolution usually comes down to one thing: whether everyone involved is ready to let it go. Right now, Atlanta is watching closely. Will this be remembered as the moment two powerful figures chose evolution, or will unresolved tension quietly linger beneath the surface? Peace is powerful, but in street culture, peace has to feel real. And only time will prove whether this one truly is. If you made it this far, you already know this situation deeper than headlines. Drop your honest take below. Is this real growth or just survival mode? Hit like if you respect peace, subscribe for breakdowns that go beyond the surface, and stay locked in. We're just getting started.